The Galactic Council had ruled the known universe for 12,000 years. They controlled trade routes, military forces, and the flow of technology between species. When humanity first made contact with the Council 70 years ago, they were treated like children discovering fire for the first time. The Council assigned Earth a classification of Level 2, meaning humans were considered primitive and needed guidance. They were given strict rules about space travel, weapons development, and economic activity. Earth was expected to follow these rules without question. Ambassador Vance stood before the massive chamber on the Council of Prime. The room was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. Some had scales that shimmered under the artificial lights. Others had multiple limbs or floated in special chambers filled with gases from their home planets. All of them looked at with expressions ranging from boredom to open contempt. High Chancellor, a tall creature with gray skin and 6 eyes, spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber. He announced that Earth's request to develop faster than light engines independently had been. The Council had decided that humans were not ready for such technology. They would continue to rely on Council-approved transport vessels for the next 500 years, until they proved themselves mature enough to handle advanced propulsion systems. Felt her hands shake with anger. She had spent 3 years negotiating this single request. Her planet had discovered new physics principles that could revolutionize space travel, but the Council refused to even look at the research. They simply pointed to their ancient rules and dismissed humanity like they were nothing more than insects begging for crumbs. She returned to Earth with the news. The United Earth government called an emergency meeting. Leaders from every nation gathered in Geneva to discuss what had happened. The room was filled with frustration and wounded pride. General slammed his fist on the table and declared that Earth had been patient long enough. They had followed every rule, paid every tax, and bowed to every demand. And still, the Council treated them like inferior beings. President listened to every argument before making her decision. She stood and addressed the assembly with calm determination. She announced that Earth would no longer follow Council restrictions. They would develop their own technology, build their own fleet, and chart their own course through the stars. The room erupted in both cheers and worried murmurs. Everyone knew what this meant. Earth was declaring independence from the most powerful organization in the galaxy. The Council received Earth's declaration within hours. High Chancellor laughed when he read it. He turned to his advisors and remarked that the humans had finally lost their minds. He ordered a blockade of the Sol system. No ships would enter or leave until the humans came to their senses. He expected the matter to be resolved within weeks. After all, Earth depended on Council trade for critical resources. Without access to galactic markets, their economy would collapse. But had made a critical mistake. He had never truly studied humanity. He knew nothing of their history, their wars, or their remarkable ability to adapt under pressure. He saw only a young species that had been spacefaring for less than a century. He could not imagine that they would pose any real threat. Dr. Sarah led the team developing Earth's independent FTL drive. She had proposed the original technology to the Council, and their rejection had only made her more determined. Her team worked around the clock in a secret facility beneath the Himalayan mountains. They faced countless setbacks and failures. 3 test pilots lost their lives during early experiments, but Sarah refused to give up. She knew that billions of people were counting on her success. After 18 months of grueling work, they achieved a breakthrough. The drive worked differently from anything the Council had ever seen. Instead of bending space like traditional FTL systems, it created temporary tunnels through higher dimensions. The travel was instantaneous and required far less energy. Sarah watched the first successful test with tears streaming down her face. They had done it. They had surpassed Council technology in less than 2 years. Meanwhile, General had been building a military force in secret. Earth's manufacturing capacity was pushed to its limits. Factories that once made consumer goods now produced warships. Every able-bodied person contributed to the effort. Miners worked triple shifts to extract rare metals. Engineers designed weapon systems that combined human creativity with stolen glimpses of alien technology. The fleet grew larger every day, hidden in orbital shipyards behind the moon. The Council blockade had been in place for 2 years when High Chancellor received disturbing reports. His scouts had detected unusual energy signatures coming from the Sol system. He dispatched a reconnaissance force of 50 ships to investigate. They entered the system expecting to find a desperate and dying civilization. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by 300 human warships that appeared from nowhere. Admiral Victoria Santos commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the newly commissioned Earth Unified Ship Defiance. She smiled as she opened communications with the Council scouts. She politely informed them that they were trespassing in human territory. She gave them exactly 60 seconds to leave before she would be forced to demonstrate the consequences of ignoring her warning. The Council commander refused to retreat. He ordered his ships to attack, confident in their technological superiority. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. Human ships moved with impossible speed, appearing and disappearing at will. Their weapons punched through Council shields like they were made of paper. When the shooting stopped, only 7 Council vessels remained operational. Admiral Santos allowed them to flee, knowing they would carry the message back to Prime. High Chancellor received the report with growing horror. 43 ships destroyed in minutes. Weapons and propulsion systems beyond anything in Council archives. He immediately ordered a full military mobilization. Every member species was commanded to contribute forces for a massive strike against Earth. This rebellion had to be crushed before other species got similar ideas. But the situation was already slipping beyond his control. News of Earth's victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had suffered under Council restrictions for centuries began to ask dangerous questions. If the humans could build superior technology in just 2 years, what did that say about Council claims of guiding lesser species toward advancement? Perhaps the Council was not interested in helping anyone. Perhaps they were simply keeping everyone weak. Ambassador Vance began receiving secret communications from dozens of worlds. Representatives wanted to know if Earth would share their technology. They wanted to know if humanity would stand with them against Council oppression. Brought every message to President, who saw an opportunity that could change everything. Earth announced the formation of the Free Systems Alliance. Any species that wished to leave Council control was welcome to join. They would share technology freely and treat every member as an equal partner. Within 6 months, 23 species had joined the alliance. Within a year, the number had grown to 64. The Council watched in disbelief as their carefully constructed order collapsed around them. High Chancellor assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 7,000 warships from loyal Council species gathered at Prime. They would strike Earth directly and end this rebellion once and for all. The humans had won a single battle against an unprepared scouting force. Surely they could not stand against the full might of the Council. The Council fleet arrived at Sol system expecting a desperate last stand. Instead, they found the combined forces of the Free Systems Alliance waiting for them. 4,000 ships from dozens of species had gathered to defend Earth. Admiral Santos commanded the combined fleet alongside alien admirals who had once been her enemies. The battle raged for 3 days. Both sides suffered terrible losses. Council ships were more numerous, but Alliance vessels were faster and better armed. Human commanders showed a genius for unconventional tactics that consistently caught Council forces off guard. They used asteroid fields as ambush points. They sent ships on suicide runs to break enemy formations. They fought with a ferocity born from generations of being told they were inferior. On the 3rd day, the Council flagship was destroyed by a concentrated strike from 12 Alliance vessels. High Chancellor died in the explosion, along with most of the Council leadership. The remaining Council forces broke and fled. They had lost more than half their fleet and had nothing to show for it except humiliation. In the aftermath of the battle, the Galactic Council formally dissolved. The surviving member species had no appetite for continuing the fight. Most of them joined the Free Systems Alliance within months. The old order that had controlled the galaxy for 12,000 years vanished almost overnight. President addressed the first assembly of the new alliance on a space station orbiting Earth. She spoke of the future they would build together. She promised that no species would ever again be told they were too primitive to govern themselves. The alliance would be a partnership of equals, where every voice mattered and every species could reach their full potential. Dr. Sarah continued her research and shared her discoveries with every world that asked. Within a decade, travel times across the galaxy had been reduced by 90%. Trade flourished as species that had been kept apart by council rules finally connected with each other. New art forms emerged as cultures mixed and influenced one another. The galaxy entered a golden age that previous generations could never have imagined. General retired from military service and became an advocate for peaceful cooperation between species. He had seen enough war to last several lifetimes. Now, he dedicated himself to ensuring that the alliance would never need to fight like that again. He established training academies where military officers from all species learned to work together and resolve conflicts through diplomacy. Ambassador Vance became the first Secretary General of the Free Systems Alliance. She worked tirelessly to build institutions that would outlast any single individual. She created courts to settle disputes fairly and economic systems that prevented exploitation. When she finally retired after 30 years of service, the alliance had grown to include over 200 member species. The humans who had been dismissed as primitive newcomers had sparked a revolution that transformed the entire galaxy. They had proven that being underestimated could be the greatest advantage of all. Their stubbornness, their creativity, and their refusal to accept limitations had inspired countless others to dream of something better. Thousands of years later, historians would look back at this period as the moment everything changed. They would study how a single species from an unremarkable yellow star had broken the chains that held the galaxy back. They would marvel at the audacity of humans who dared to challenge ancient powers and emerged victorious. The story would be told and retold across countless worlds, always ending with the same lesson: never underestimate humanity. They had a habit of making the impossible look easy. The cosmos would never be the same again, and that was exactly what Earth had intended from the very beginning.